Kat, I brought copies of the We now have a quorum. So, welcome to the Portland Planning Sustainability Commission, June 27th meeting. On the agenda today, we're going to have items of interest from commissioners, followed by the director's report. On the consent agenda, we have consideration of the minutes from June 13th. That will be followed by street vacation request of Northeast 111th Avenue, Northeast 112th Avenue, Northeast Mark Street, and Northeast Deering Drive. That is a hearing and a recommendation. If you are here to testify, there are testimony cards in the back of the room. Please fill them out and bring them up to Catherine. Our hearing will be followed by the Transportation System Development Charges Update. That is a work session. And last but certainly not least, we will have the Design Overlay Zoning Amendments briefing. So any of items of interest from commissioners? Katie?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I attended the leadership meeting last week or 2 weeks ago? And which is when the leadership of this commission gets together and looks at what's coming up on the calendar, et cetera. So I enjoyed the meeting, and the reason that Jeff Backrack and I were there was because we were interested in finding out more about how projects get started and how they get to become projects. And so we're, just starting down that road, and I'm really interested to hear more about that topic.
Great. First of all, thank you for attending the meeting, and I believe you've got a little something to say about that, Joe. So are there any other items of interest before I pass it off to Joe? Nope, go ahead.
Oh, great. Well, thank you, and thanks for the lead-in, Katie. So I handed out, I may need, Andre may not have gotten you one, a copy of a document called the BPS Work Program for fiscal 17-18. And this is a document that we prepare as part of our Budget Advisory Committee process. So this is, as we're building this year's budget, how we explain to our advisory committee, at least, the logic and the story behind the different projects that we're thinking of undertaking and how it corresponds to our staffing workload primarily, because that's what the FTE numbers across the top are. Today, I just wanted to hand this out just so that you have it. We didn't make time on the agenda to discuss it today, but I'm actually encourage you all just to look it over and to call me with questions. Our intent is to have a discussion about not just this work program, but the next a 3-year work program as part of our Planning and Sustainability Commission retreat that's yet to be scheduled, but needs to be scheduled prior to the startup of our next fiscal year budget process, because that's when it's really most timely, and we can talk through then at least our logic for how to even nominate projects for the work program. But it's kind of a nomination process as well. So good ideas or issues that you would like to see us think through how to turn into initiatives or projects or something, we're interested in hearing about as well. And that kind of feedback, even between now and the retreat, is useful, and then we can, make more productive use of that retreat meeting when we organize it. Does that make sense? And even this work program, I just pulled it off the server today. This is what we used when we developed the budget. I really haven't gone back through and it's still fluid, even though that this is what the budget proposal was based on. So some of this has been morphing as we've refined the scopes of these more, like even today you'll hear.
Can I ask, is there a possibility of speaking to the mic a little closer? I'm having a hard time here.
Okay, well maybe, is that at all any better? No.
Okay, yeah, let's try it.
So Eli, do you have a computer?
I do.
You're going to get much better sound if you stream in this meeting than if you try to listen to it through the phone.
I'm working on that right now.
Okay.
Okay. Great.
Okay.
So we'll bring this back, but I wanted to provide it so you had this information that we've already used to develop the budget, and we can start discussion of it offline, and we can bring it back to a retreat meeting. Okay?
Thank you. So just checking in, Mike, have you joined us yet? Okay, so Catherine, Mike is stuck on hold. Do we have any thoughts on how to get both Mike and Eli on the phone? Okay, I did tell him to do that. We'll see if I get another email. I was just curious if you had some other bright idea. I just was went with the typical IT response. Turn off and try again. Okay. I'll keep emailing him. Okay. Next on the agenda is the consideration of the minutes from June 13th. Do I have a motion? So moved. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? No one's opposed. That passes. So next up is right-of-way 8073, street vacation request of Northeast 111th Avenue, Northeast 112th Avenue, Northeast Mark Street, Northeast Deering Drive. This is a hearing and a recommendation. If you're here to testify, please get a comment card in the back of the room, fill it out, and bring it up to Catherine here at the end of the table. And I just want to note for the record that we have Eli Spivak on the phone with us today, and Mike? Just Eli. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. Carl Aruda, right-of-way agent with the Bureau of Transportation. And I just wanted to open up, the map on the screen just as a reference, since this is a larger than usual street vacation. So this is a city-initiated street vacation initiated by PBOT. This area of 109th Avenue and 112th Avenue were part of a LID project that reconstructed 109th and 112th and made improvements also along Mark Street between those two. And then following the LID project, PBOT proposed the street vacation along Marks Street after doing street improvements for sidewalks and ADA ramps on the corners. There is excess right-of-way behind the sidewalks that the adjacent owners were already maintaining, and PBOT had no short or long-term need for that excess right-of-way. And so that was why we're going to vacate that down there. And then up on the north side along the Columbia Slough, Northeast Deering Drive is a what you would call a paper street. It's never been developed, but it was platted originally when this whole neighborhood was platted, I think about 100 years ago. And it's never been developed for anything other than part of the, essentially part of the unofficial property of those neighbors there. There's not really at Northeast 111th. This little stub here is where Northeast 111th would be if it existed. And then this is a small piece of 112th down here. And this inset map is showing an enlargement of 112th and Deering going east-west mostly. Part of the reason for PBOT proposing to vacate Deering Drive up here is that as PBOT and the neighbors had no plans or desire to develop this as a street, and so we wanted to revert the excess right-of-way back to the adjacent property owners. Then part of the issue is that sort of the question that came up during the LID project was that if there was ever further development or a subdivision along here, a property owner could either be at least by rule, required or ask about building out Northeast Daring Drive and paving it and building it out. And that's not something that PBOT wanted to do, and the current property owners have no interest in that either. And so leaving it as right-of-way will leave open sort of the possibility of unintentionally having a development in the future where you would have a requirement or the option of building out a street where PBOT did not want a street. So comments were solicited from the usual PBOT divisions and other city bureaus, neighborhood associations, the Columbia Slough Watershed Council, and also because it's against the slough, adjacent to the slough, the Multnomah County Drainage District. The area received responses requesting various conditions and easements, including the Multnomah County Drainage District asked for an easement for access through 112th over here to get to the slough for their maintenance purposes. The Bureau of Environmental Services also asked for a similar access easement here for their own purposes to get to the slough for maintenance for their bureau. Pacific Power has several utility poles in the vacation area over here that they wanted to leave there, but they just want access to maintain them. PBOT itself has a street light on one of the poles on 112th, and so PBOT wants to reserve the right to access that street light and maintain it. Northwest Natural has gas lines that go through 109th and 112th, and actually through Daring Drive and under the slough. And so Northwest Natural wants to reserve easement for those pipes to remain there and to maintain them if necessary. The Water Bureau has a water line going through 112th, and I believe that also goes under the slough. And so the Water Bureau is reserving their access to maintain and keep that pipe there. The Bureau of Environmental Services also requested a conservation easement over the full extent of Daring Drive that's being vacated. That is, in the short term, that conservation easement won't have a large impact because that area is already designated with an environmental protection P-zone overlay designation. But BES felt more comfortable adding on a conservation easement just in case the P-zone designation ever changed. And then the Environmental Services also agreed to be the holder of a recreational trail easement for access at 112th to get from the end of the public street through the vacated area to the slough for mainly boating access, because the Neighborhood Association and the Watershed Council and BES informed us that this has been a sort of historic or frequent location for canoeing and kayaking, and everyone agreed that that should be maintained. And so the recreational trail easement will serve to allow public access at that location. And I have a couple of other photos. Show this in the Mark Street area. There's just a few photos showing the general layout of the new sidewalks and stormwater facilities that were built, and then beyond the sidewalk, behind the sidewalk, this is still right of way, where over here I had the measuring tape. So like this area here is still public right of way, but PBOT and the city has no use for that excess right of way. And then on Daring Drive, this photo here and this one here is the end of 112th Avenue that leads to the slough. And these are the Pacific Power poles that need to remain there. And these other two photos on the right are basically near, I think this one at least was near 109th Avenue. Basically, this is the street, and PBOT has no intention of changing that status like that, and so we would be comfortable vacating that. And the fence here, this is at the end of the 112th Avenue. This fence was built as part of the LID construction. There's a vehicle gate there to provide vehicle access for the MCDD and Pacific Power and other agencies that might need access behind there. And then the pedestrian gate would be the gate for public access, but the fence was put there mainly as the request of the property owners on either side of 112th Avenue to limit public access, because there has been a repeated problem of campers, illegal camping, and other unauthorized activities down here. So from here, that's another 15, 20 yards to the slough, I would say. But Deering Drive starts behind this pole where those trees are. And I'll be happy to take any questions if I've missed anything.
Okay, just real quick, I want to check in here with our friends on the phone.
Okay.
Eli and Mike, are you both on now?
I am on.
Okay,
I haven't been able to get the stream going, but I'm on.
okay. Mike?
Here I am, Eli Gay.
I think you're gonna.
Yeah, I can hear you.
I think you two are gonna struggle hearing us in general, unfortunately. So, Mike, if you can figure out how to get a stream in, that might be your best bet.
Is it possible someone could give me a link to where to go to the stream? I'm just having a hard time finding it. I haven't.
Catherine, if you could maybe send both Eli and Mike the link. Okay.
Catherine,
Yes.
I hear you fine.
Well, it's because I'm leaning
Yeah, I hear
over.
Catherine fine too. Sometimes other people not so good.
Yeah, it's because I'm next to the
Yeah.
speaker, and so I'm leaning over and actually talking to you. Just as a heads up, Carl just went through and presented the documents that you should have received prior to today, kind of walking you through the right-of-way vacation request. And we're about to go into questions. Okay, Chris.
So a couple of clarifying questions I think will be of interest to the people testifying.
Yes.
So when we vacate a street, it always goes to the adjoining property owner. We can't give it to anybody else, right?
Correct. Thank you. Yes,
Okay.
that is correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
And could you expand on the BES trail easement, and particularly what we anticipate the operational procedures will be for opening or closing the gate that they have installed there?
Yeah, so there was much discussion about how that could or would work or not work. And so the plan, where we centered on, is really to maintain public access, reasonable public access, and without putting, excess burden on the public or BES staff. I think the current thinking is to leave this pedestrian gate open, or, if this fence was to change, years from now, to leave the pedestrian gate open for public access. I learned through this process that recreational trail easements are governed by the same rules that a city park would be governed, and that their normal hours of operation under the zoning code would be 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. And so we've talked to BES that, at some point there would be, a sign put up here, saying this is trail access, but it's, only for, not for overnight use, only for, for daytime use. And that the gate would be left open unless there was an issue, affecting public health and safety, where BES or the police felt it needed to be closed to clean up the location or resolve any problems.
Just real quick, because I know Mike had kind of had some questions. Mike, did you hear that explanation about hours of operation, that the gate would be left open?
Yeah, and we've exchanged some emails, and I'm satisfied with what I've heard, frankly, regarding leaving the gate open, with the option to close it off, as I've indicated, and will indicate now. Illegal camping out along the Columbia Route is a huge problem, and I totally understand the need to periodically cut off access in order to keep some control on what's going on in the Columbia Route. So I think the notion of having the gate, the default having the gate open is my preference, but understand the need to control that as well. And I don't know what that might mean over time, but the most important thing, of course, is keeping that public access easement as a condition, which I totally support. And then I also support the scenario that has been outlined by BES and PBOT.
Great.
Ideally, it'd be great to have it open all the time, but I understand there's a maintenance issue related to illegal camping and other health and safety issues.
Thanks for that. Andre, you had your hand up?
Yeah. So can you describe to me the difference between BS is asking for the conservation overlay as a condition, correct?
Yeah, on Deering Drive, yes. Conservation easement is what, yeah.
Easement. Mm-hmm. And can you explain to me the difference for the property owners between that and if you just left it a street? And assuming PBOT would never develop it, PBOT during a development process for a adjacent property owner could say there's no conditions, correct? And so what would be the development difference that would be required under
Only somewhat.
that condition?
So I mean, if it wasn't vacated? Is that-
Well, I know
or-
what happens if
or
it's
if
not
there was no
vacated,
conservation
but
easement.
the conservation easement, what would be the property owner's responsibility or impact to their property having that overlay next to their property?
So Eli and Mike, what Andre's asking is just what the effects of the conservation overlay is on the adjacent property owners.
I think that as a practical matter, having the P zone, environmental protection zone overlay there, already, precludes most development. And so having the conservation easement, at least for now, probably doesn't change or reduce their development options very much. But BES was just more comfortable adding the conservation easement because BES as a bureau would be in control of that conservation easement, whereas the P zone could change, next time the definition of the P zone could change next time the zoning code is updated. And so I think that was generally BES's thinking. I think as a practical matter, there's not a huge difference right in the immediate impact of their development lack of options in that space.
So the setbacks and everything are pretty much the same between the two zones?
That I don't know if it affects the setbacks in a different way. Nancy, do you? I don't think so.
Okay.
And just for reference, Deering Drive is 30 feet wide for that whole length.
Catherine?
Yes, Katie.
So I was just wondering if a kayaker happened along and they came to that, because I went and looked at it. It's in my neighborhood, and I thought it would be a place that I might go kayaking. but the door is locked. And so, are we in between, is it that this needs to take place and then BS will take it over and then it will be open on a regular basis?
Yeah, I mean, it was unlocked a few months ago when I visited there. It was locked now just recently when you were out there.
Absolutely locked. There was
Okay.
absolutely no way you could get through
And so
there.
I think in between my visit and your visit, PBOT sent a maintenance crew out there to clean up some camping debris and other remnants of camping. And so I think at that point, it may be that PBOT maintenance locked it, or it may either PBOT maintenance or the police would have locked it to prevent immediate recurrence of that issue. So I don't know offhand when they were planning to unlock that. But certainly, if this process went through, then I think BS's plan would be to have that open, and make it open to the public as much as possible.
Okay, thank you.
Mike, did you want to jump in now? Mike? Okay. Well, the good news is I can hear them streaming, so they're listening. They just muted themselves or something. Okay. Any other questions? I think with that, we'll go ahead and take testimony then, Carl.
Okay.
So if you are here to testify, there are testimony cards in the back of the room. Please fill them out and then bring them up to Catherine.
I was a little shocked to hear, I'm not understanding the E-zone. Can you hear me?
Yep. We can.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you see me nod? Yes.
Oh, you can?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, the streaming is working great. Do you hear me?
We hear you and we hear you streaming. Technology. It's wonderful. Mike, did you have something on to add? Okay. I'm going to ask you to not add anything right now then. And we're going to take testimony. So
That
here.
was about a 5-minute delay.
Yep, sorry about your leg. I'm going to have you hold off. We're going to take testimony. So right now, if I could have Linda Robinson come up
When I was on the phone, it was like a 5-minute delay.
and Corky Collier come up.
That's okay. Go ahead. Just go ahead. Just go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay, my name's Linda Robinson. I'm a member of the Columbia Slough Watershed Council, and I live in East Portland. We had a long discussion a couple different times at the Watershed Council. We agree that Deering Drive should be vacated. We have no problem with that. But we do care a lot about maintaining public access to the slough at 112th for a couple of reasons. One is it's one of the few places on the slough where the banks slope gradually, where you actually don't have to plop a canoe and throw it down, and where you can, it's easy to launch. That's why people have been using it. There's also, it's really cool spot. The water is shallow, it's clear, and there are springs that bubble up. And you can see them very clearly. I take people there to see it. Many people have no idea that water can bubble up in an existing body of water. So it's something that we like to take people to see that phenomenon. So that's our main thing is we really, we'd like to have the gate open as much as possible. We'd like to have it open all the time, but we understand that at times it might need to be closed. We have that issue on all of our parks and open spaces with the camping. We can't close them all off. We can't lock them all up. So we would really like to maintain that public access to the slough at that point.
My name is Corky Collier. I'm Executive Director of the Columbia Corridor Association. I also serve on the Board of Supervisors for the Multnomah County Drainage District, and I serve on the Columbia Slough Watershed Council as well. And it's kind of easy because I've got 3 hats on right now, but we're all in agreement, really. First of all, we want to thank the adjacent property owners for taking on the responsibility of that new environmental zone or environmental easement in an area that was planned to be a street. You know, so that's great, thank you. And we all agree that we need a maintenance easement for the drainage district to get into that area. And we also all agree that we would really, really like to have a public trail easement through here as well. The drainage district staff apologizes for not being here. They had a previous commitment, but they did want to convey how important that maintenance easement is for them. In the past, for the past year or so, they haven't been able to access the slough here. And let's be clear when we're talking about the public access easement too, is the problem that has prompted some of this has been the fact that there hasn't been public access here. It's been blocked. And there's been a lot of garbage. The city recently pulled out about 50 gallons of poo. That's what was sitting on top of the ground. I don't know how much was in the slough itself. So that's been a problem. We've got a crude solution here. And part of the solution requires that we have these two easements. One is the maintenance easement, the other is the public trail easement that are essentially on top of each other. The drainage district needs that maintenance easement so they can get boats down in there to maintain the slough, fight invasives, so forth. We would like that public trail easement as well. The problem has been the management of it. Who's going to take that responsibility on? I tried to get the drainage district to do it. I lost in that vote. I tried to get the council to do it. I lost in that vote. I've been losing a lot of votes lately. And so at this point, I'm kind of, my feeling is sort of like, hey, whoever will take on that easement and at least be a holder of it until we find somebody better, great. I'm not going to argue too much over how they manage it at this stage of the game. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you both. Any questions? No? Okay. If there's anybody else here to testify, please fill out a testimony card. I am not seeing anybody else here to do so. So with that, we'll close testimony. Are there any additional questions for Carl? Michelle?
So is the easement that is going to govern the access to the slough, is it clear that the maintenance responsibility is on the city?
I think that with the recreational easement, the maintenance, depending upon how it's negotiated, the maintenance could be shared between the property owners and the city. And so I think, like, for the way it is now, for example, I mean, if this, you know, if the space was just left in its current state, you know, for a while, there would not necessarily be a lot of maintenance necessary. Unless there was a camping problem. So I don't think it's necessarily finalized who will be having maintenance responsibility, or if it would be shared, or at what point, you know, BES would take on maintenance responsibility. And so that might be more of an issue of negotiation, I think, yeah, between BES and the property owners.
Andre?
Is it the same for the trail overlay for the adjacent property owners?
Oh, I was referring to the trail easement.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I thought that was what Michelle was referring to, Commissioner Red.
My question is whoever has the keys to the gate going to be responsible for keeping it clean? Because if I can't lock the gate, if I'm the property owner and I can't lock the gate, I don't want to be responsible for cleaning up what happens beyond the gate. So it seems fair to me that that easement would put that burden on the city, and that's what I was trying to find out.
Andre?
So it's not clear right now who has the trail responsibility for maintenance then. I mean, it's going to be negotiated in the future.
Right, yeah, we haven't finalized that document, yeah, between BES. I mean, that would be the easement between the BES and the property owners. And I think BES is planning to, you know, manage, you know, the easement to the extent it needs its management. But I think sort of the default terms of a trail easement, you know, could put some of the general maintenance responsibilities on the property owners. And I'm sure they will want BES to do more of the maintenance. But
Is that a condition then that would be prior to the transfer?
yes, yeah. So I think one of the conditions between now and going to city council, that trail easement would be prepared and circulated between BES and the property owners to have that, so that when we go to city council, they will have a document they can reference.
And is that condition in here today, or is that a future condition?
The trail easement,
Yeah, I mean, I know the trail easement is, but the condition of who does maintenance, or I guess the maintenance component of that.
right? No, I don't think the maintenance part was detailed in this report.
Is it something we could add?
I
Before we-
suppose you could.
Dictate views
You
here.
can make that recommendation, I'm sure. Yes.
I mean, is this it seems that the property owners ought to know what their maintenance responsibilities are before they kind of say yes.
Yeah, and that was sort of our intention before we go to city council, that we would have that that detail negotiated and settled for them to sign that agreement. I mean, certainly, if as a commission, if you wanted to make that recommendation of how that maintenance should be handled, then you can certainly add
I just want to
add
make sure
that
there's
in
an
detail.
agreement before they say yes. That's the only issue.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, so that was the intention.
Any other questions from this group? And then if not, I'm going to pause because I can hear where they're at, and we're going to give Mike and or Eli a chance to jump in.
I have a process question.
Yep. Go ahead, Eli.
I recall that the planning commission, one of the rare things that ends at the planning commission is right-of-way dedication. So I don't, is this going from us to city council, or I'm trying to figure out if there's an easement still to negotiate, whether that, whether we're the end of the road for this decision or whether city council is.
Right, and so the city council is the final authority on whether to vacate city right-of-way. And so my understanding of the PSC's role is basically to issue a recommendation to city council regarding its opinion on the proposed street vacation.
Okay, I maybe misunderstood. I thought the one area I thought maybe might be the last stop was dedications, but that might have been an error.
That would be an error.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so let's wait for just a little bit here. I heard Mike try to jump in. Come on, Mike.
So can you hear me right now?
We can, Mike. Just give me like a 5-minute delay for you to hear me, though. No. Mike, we can hear you.
Can I just, while you're waiting for that, so if we voted to approve, to recommend approval of this,
Can you hear me now?
okay,
We can hear you.
All right, now I'm talking to the phone. There's incredible lag time with the live stream. Well, I don't know, I'd be inclined to say that personally, that the city would take on the responsibility, and the city can decide, BEF can decide when to open
you. Michelle, you want to finish up?
Just so process-wise, the ordinance for street vacation would go to the city council. And you're saying that it wouldn't say, city vacates the street subject to submission of a grant of easement by the property owner. They would actually have the property owner's signed easement at that point.
Well, no, our process recently has been that the ordinance would have as one of its exhibits a copy of the trail easement saying, so that a condition of, so the signatures would come after the ordinance is approved, but the trail easement would be, and other easements would be resolved and attached to the ordinance saying, condition is, execution and recording of trail easement attached as exhibit, X, Y, and Z,
And my suggestion would just be to deal with the maintenance issue in the document as opposed to having people fight about it later on.
Yes.
So my recommendation is that we go ahead and include that in our recommendation to make sure it's covered in advance. Are there any other comments? I'm not hearing any. So with that, do I have a motion?
I move that we accept the street vacation with the additional condition that the maintenance agreement be included in the documents or exhibits at council for the trail.
For the trail easement.
Any further discussion? Not hearing any. Catherine, do you want to maybe call everybody, do Eli and Mike last, and we'll give them time to catch up.
Yes.
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 Smith. Yes. St. Martin. Schultz, or did I don't know.
Sure,
Sure,
yes.
okay.
And then,
And then Hauk and Spivak. So
it's about 2 more minutes.
Yes. Yes?
Okay, that was a yes from both Spivak and Hauk. Thank you, guys. We appreciate you bearing with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, everybody. We appreciate you bearing with that. Next item on the agenda is the Transportation System Development Charges Update. This is a work session.
Let me skip.
No. So
The briefings of time.
for those who are watching, we are waiting for our presenters. We have this agenda item scheduled for 6:15. So just bear with us, and we're going to take a little break and come back.
Thank you for having us back.
Thank you. I'm going to give you a heads up. We've got two people on the phone, and they've got a little bit of a delay, so just be patient with us.
Okay.
So we are back on, and this agenda item is Transportation System Development Charges Update. This is a work session. Thank you guys very much for coming tonight.
So thanks for having us back. I'm Christine Leon with Portland Bureau of Transportation, and I am the Development Permitting and Transit Group Manager and in charge of the System Development Charge Program Update, as well as managing day-to-day the System Development Charge assessments that our Bureau does. So with me are Rich Eisenhower and Dave Nassif. You want just for this people on the phone so they can hear your.
So this is Rich Eisenhower. So I'm the program manager of the Transportation SDC program.
I'm Dave Nassif. I'm the lead tech worker in the SDC program.
Thank you.
So when we were here last time, we were asked to come back and continue the conversation. Thank you. To continue the conversation on the methodology. I think we ran out of time somewhat. And you also followed up with some questions that we responded in writing, but we wanted to take the opportunity this evening to go through those again and entertain additional questions. The ultimate request of you is to see if you can give your support to the Bureau in our request to do the update to our System Development Charge Program at Council. So the Council hearing will be on July 26th at a 2 p.m. time certain. And again, it's your expertise in helping us throughout the years developing our transportation system plan, which is the foundation of the projects that we are relying on in our SDC update to address the growth that we're expected to see through the city in the next 10 years. And that's really the reason why we were asking for your support. So we have a handout that covers the questions and our answers. We're going to hand that out.
For each one of you.
Okay.
Both memos are in there. There's one for you.
I got it. And we'll just go through those step by step. I think there is a total of about 5 or 6 questions. So Eli and Mike, I think do you have the memo? We had sent it out earlier.
I do have the memo, and I'm hearing much clearer on the delay feed, so I might just keep listening to that, but I have the memo.
Okay. So the response to the questions in summary were related to our methodology or some of the projects that we had selected for moving forward on the project list. The projects were related to the streetcar, and I think Michelle and Chris had a couple of questions. The earlier June meeting, our PBOT and Portland streetcar folks came and gave an update on enhanced transit communities. I think they received.
Yes, I do have the memo.
They received positive feedback from you on the approach that they're taking to fund those projects. So although we have 2 questions and responses in the memo, I wasn't going to cover them in detail because I think they did a good job in getting your feedback and engaging with you last time. But I can cover them if we want. So really the first substantive question then is related to, is the 50% funding of the total project list the appropriate rate to which we should base our SDC charges on? And we are using a couple of policies to set this rate. One is the feedback that we received during the public outreach. We talked to neighborhood groups, we engaged with development communities and traditionally underrepresented communities, and the feedback was either the rate's too high or the rate's too low. And we wanted to establish a rate that we knew we could get council to support. The funding will directly go to delivering the projects that we need to accommodate growth to maintain a certain level of service. With the change in methodology and the new projects on our 10-year SDC list, we are estimating we'll collect about 3 times as much as we have collected in the current 10 years. So while it's not the 100% list, it certainly is a balanced approach, and it is projected to collect more revenue if development continues the way it's projected. So we're estimating it might capture up to $270 million over 10 years. The other thing that is important on this rate that we've settled on, as far as the list being funded only 50%, is it relies on PBOT's historic practice of using SDCs as the piece to fill in behind the grants that we typically request through the state or the federal government or other partners. So while projects can be eligible up to 100%, we don't expect any one project to receive 100% SDC funding, that it will be part of a overall funding blended kind of mix to get a project moving to construction. So it may be that state grants and the local match is the SDC funding. So again, there's a cap in the project list of what the total amount we could spend on each project with SDC funds. We don't expect to have any one project be funded to that level. We are capturing 50% of the total projects in the SDC list. We could have gone higher. We could have gone to 100%, but we're choosing to keep it lower, realizing some of the market forces and what else is happening comprehensively with fees across the city. So
I appreciate and respect the viewpoints that you've articulated. I guess the viewpoint I'm coming at this from is recognizing that the total picture for adequacy of our transportation funding is still a pretty sad story, right? The maintenance backlog continues to grow, and we've adopted a gas tax, and that helps chip away at that, but it's still getting worse rather than getting better. So in an environment where we know maintenance is going to have a bigger and bigger call on our resources, are we going to be able to sustain the growth projects? I look at the state transportation bill, for example, and it's not about maintenance, it's about new stuff. Some of it's new stuff I like and some of it's new stuff I don't like, but it's about new stuff, it's not about the maintenance. So I just wonder if at some point, the maintenance problem is going to get so bad that the ability to direct resources other than the TDSCs towards the growth projects is really going to be there.
So by state law, we can only spend SDC money on capacity or performance enhancing projects. Maintenance projects are not eligible for SDC funding.
Right, it's the other half I'm worried about. What's going to match the 50% you're getting through this? Are those resources really going to be there, or are they going to get sucked up by maintenance?
Right. And I don't know the answer to that. Certainly, I think we struggle internally with what's the forecast. We have done a good job over the years getting additional resources, and certainly council has been supportive of our maintenance backlog and our deficiencies in our infrastructure. So I'm hoping that that will continue as a trend to kind of fill in that part of that gap for maintenance. Yeah.
Thank you.
Other questions on that topic? And I think you're going to, Christine, tackle some of these one at a time, right? So that topic.
I think this is that topic.
Okay.
Okay, so it might be a new question, but it has to do with the list. And so my question is, how do you set the priorities on the list? Who gets to set the priorities?
That's a good question. So we took, I'm going to start with how we got to the project list that's in the recommended rate study. So the projects that are in there come from our transportation system plan, as well as a couple other plans that we talked about last time. But for the majority of the projects, they come from our TSP. In order to get onto the SDC list, they have to be able to show that they will be a growth accommodating project. We also scored them with our equity score and a number of other factors. We have, once you're on the SDC list, we have a couple of processes in place to get to our budget. And our budget is where we have definite money targeted to deliver a project in the next fiscal year. We have our capital program that feeds into the budget. So really the question is, how do we make those capital project decisions and budget decisions project by project if we only have a system development charge that is capturing 50% of our need on the SDC list? So we've come up with an internal discussion guide and a evaluation matrix, and I have a couple of handouts, or one handout, that illustrates some of the criteria that we are asking individual project managers to, to address when they come to the committee to request funding. So we are starting this off.
Can I just add one little piece so when you're answering, you can add it in? And I'm just curious to see where citizen input takes place, or if at all. Or maybe it's already happened, but.
Just wondering if Zeph was here. Okay. Everybody good with the handout? So this is a table extracted from our evaluation based on 4 projects that are coming in requesting, and it's just an example. I really wanted to show you the criteria that we have put in place. And they include the sense of urgency and timing. Someone can come in and request a project either for the budget or if they need to make a request for a grant. It's kind of a conditional approval based on a scope that is still not fully determined. So they're trying to figure out what the potential for SDC money is. They can come in then, or again at final budget time, I really need this money to do design and construction. So that's the timely and urgent category. Community support, what has the businesses, the community, the neighborhoods provided on those specific projects as far as willingness to support and say that this is going to be a priority project. So I think that is an opportunity project by project for the community to weigh in on the different projects that we select to move forward into our CIP as well as our budget. The committed funding, again, this gets into timing. Is there a need to say we have the match for a ODOT grant or a federal grant, or is it you're into project delivery and you need to secure the funding to pay a contractor? And then what are those external sources? This is the time too where we might be able to push back on some of the project managers and say, hey, your scope's not fully defined. We don't have the amount that you're requesting to provide you, so can you reduce the scope? Can you do some value engineering? Can you make some changes to the project? But it's really focused around what's the balance of money that you have available, what's the total project cost, can you do some reductions? The next category is the historic lack of investment or deficiencies. And this is, some projects don't meet the criteria of the Metro State federal grants. And if they're historically left behind, this is the chance to explain that. The equitable benefits, and we have a new map that we've created in PBOT that shows 3 of the equity criteria that we are going to be using moving forward to evaluate some of our projects, and so that's this criteria. Bending the curve is a kind of a catch-all to say, okay, how are you really going to be addressing with this project, specifically Vision Zero goals, climate action goals, changing the mode share split, reducing vehicle miles traveled. And then the total request, and then the percent that it's eligible for SDC dollars. So it's a new internal process. The opportunity for public engagement is through that specific community support question. Overall, the community support for and the community input for the projects on the SDC list have been through the TSB update and through the process that we're going through to get the rate study adopted. Yeah. It's taken place programmatically or system-wide, but not on an individual project. Yeah.
Would citizens be able to see this? I mean, this is actually very nice little, so are all the projects have sheets like this?
This shows for 4 projects. We have a Google form that our project managers use to fill it in, and then we have an internal staff group that then goes and weighs each one of the projects in these categories based on what the project managers fill in. So yes, we can certainly make this available online, and through our annual reports to council and public communities, we want to make this available to be transparent, to show how we did make our choices. So yeah, in some form, we will be using this annually to report up. So we needed to capture this data in a formal format.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions on that item? Okay, thanks, Christine.
Sure. I'm going to skip over the residential question for now. I'll come back to it. Don't worry, Eli. The next question relates to the streetcar projects, and again, I wasn't going to cover that in detail, but there are 4 projects on the SCC list totaling about $20 million. The next question relates again to the single-family residential fee analysis, I believe. And the next question relates to the expansion of the streetcar on the west side, and that was a question I think, Michelle, you had, and streetcar, I think, came in and evaluated that and talked about what they're going to be doing moving forward. So that leaves residential infill.
Can we talk about streetcar before you move on?
Sure.
So I appreciate Chris and Michelle talking about streetcar, and my concern is, given the way you've described streetcar to be on the list, it is a question of East Portland versus West Portland, and streetcar never gets to West Portland because they never get the criteria in terms of how you've laid it out. Because the criteria that you've laid out for streetcar and saying that they get to be on the list, East Portland's never gonna probably have that criteria until it's almost too late. And so the other criteria you've left in place is that streetcar is a catalyst for affordable housing, but I've yet to hear streetcar say they're doing affordable housing as a criteria of streetcar. And so you have 2 projects in here that are not maintenance related or equipment related. And is PBOT leading that housing effort now to ensure there will be affordable housing? And how do you get that? Because you just went through great criteria for the SDCs, and 2 of those were historically under investment and equitable investment. How do you address those criteria in SDCs when Streetcar just bumps past them and gets $10, $20 million? It just is, somehow they don't get to play by the same rules everybody else does. And I'm concerned that PBOT now has to take on housing, and Streetcar's not going to develop the affordable housing if they are in the same criteria and under the same conditions. So you're asking for our recommendation, but my reservation is Streetcar.
Well, and Christine, you go ahead and answer, but and also I wanted to offer up, Eric has been following up on that discussion we had last time directly with Streetcar, so he can add what he learned from them about this question.
Put you on the spot there, Eric. So you asked a lot of parts of that question, Andre. The streetcar projects are in our capital list as part of the regional kind of tab. And yes, they would have to make the case as any other project will for funding. In fact, Dan Bauer is already knocking on my door saying, can I have funding for parts of streetcar? They may not get a green category in every single one of these, but that is part of what we have to evaluate. I think the affordable housing question is related to a commitment that I think you heard Streetcar say at the last meeting, that we are committed to making sure that an affordable housing strategy is delivered with the next streetcar extension. Again, I wasn't here at the meeting, but that is consistently what I hear our PSI partners and the board say. So the benefits will be, if they do that, they will, I believe, have strong community support in selecting those lines and delivering those projects. Streetcar has, 5 criteria that they've been working through on what lines would they choose. And those include the ridership, and that would be on opening day because the FTA has changed some of their criteria. Whether or not there's some other value capture mechanism through an LID or something else. The land use and economic benefits and support from adjacent businesses and neighborhoods, and then whether or not the alignment would be technically feasible. So there's a system within a system of making those choices, but yes, they have to come to us requesting funding. They got on the list because there is definitely a growth accommodating piece for the streetcar, and I have heard them commit to delivering the extensions with an affordable housing strategy.
So is PBOT the gate holder? I'm trying to figure out who's the gate holder for the affordable housing. Because somebody has to say, if they don't have an affordable housing strategy, which may actually not get them support in a neighborhood because they come with a large component of strategy and it may affect their funding strategy. Someone has to say, you don't have affordable housing, you can't move forward. And is PBOT that group, or who gets to say no?
Well, I guess part of that is, what are the steps to get approval from the city to do a streetcar extension? And my brain hasn't thought through those steps yet. And I don't know, Eric, or if this commission or council has weighed in. The streetcar which is under my umbrella, so it's kind of odd. I have both, so is the tram. But I'm fair and impartial, you know me. The streetcar has to go through a series of annual reports, and they go through a similar budgeting exercise that is part of PBOT's capital budget. I mean, we own the streetcar. It is our asset. There are partners in funding, and certainly it's a large project to deliver. So there will be a series of approvals, formal approvals through our budget, through council. I don't know about this committee to get to deciding on what the next streetcar extension is. And if the city, based on the recommendation of this commission, is saying we need to have an affordable housing strategy delivered with that, or acknowledged, or whatever those words are, then I think that is the time to make sure that that is in place for those approval steps.
I would just supplement that by saying BPS has been working closely with Portland Streetcar on this question of what does an affordable housing strategy look like for streetcar. And right now, most of our action in that category is related to Southwest Light Rail, because that's the big funding source that's driving a lot of that discussion. But our intent is to apply those lessons and pivot that to, if there is a streetcar expansion, to be applying that same kind of strategy approach with PSI and with PBOT. So BPS is a little bit part of that discussion and on the hook for kind of the corralling of that.
And I am also on that committee that BPS is looking at as far as the Southwest Corridor affordable housing strategy. So,
and I just want to, I guess, ask a question of something you said. And as part of our recommendation, then we could, because we've recommended, I guess, stepping back a little bit, that streetcar not move ahead, which you acknowledged in your response, without doing this study, and you seem to skip past that pretty fast. As a PSC, we did recommend that in the comp plan part. So,
and the council put the streetcar into the TSP after
Yes.
that, right?
right.
yeah, and so they did, and that's fine. But could we then recommend that council step back and require that strategy prior to funding?
I think you have
I mean, we
that
could
ability
recommend
to
it.
recommend it.
Yes.
Yes, certainly.
Okay.
I'm looking at Joe. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's a.
Well, in your letter, if you're
In our
writing a
letter, I
letter.
guess I'm in the letter component.
So it would be something like, in order to receive SDC funding, the project needs to demonstrate the affordable housing plan and something like that.
Well,
Okay,
Thank you.
okay.
If I could follow up on that a little bit. And part of the reason I put the question on the list was just so we could have this discussion, so thank you, Andre. I think the concern Andre has and that I would share is that streetcar, in part because of its partnerships, has demonstrated considerable ability to generate political alignment at council for funding, right? And we want to make sure that that's part of an overall equitable distribution of resources. So I guess the question I would ask is to go up a level. When we did the TSP project list, geographic equity was a specific scoring criteria, and in fact, we even put our thumb on the scale in favor of East Portland a little bit extra. Have you done a geographic equity analysis of the eligibility selections? Do you know what that looks like?
So the current STC program has a number of charts and graphs that I didn't include in here that show where the revenue has been generated by neighborhoods, neighborhood coalitions, and then where the capital projects have been delivered, and then comparing those on another table. The East Portland, I know, is benefited from having more capital than what we have received in SDC revenue over the last 10 years. I think North Portland has given more revenue than capital projects being delivered, but it's still a very small amount. So yes, there is geographic studies and data that we have, and that's part of what we are going to be using as well as this to make our decisions, is that balance. I will say the streetcar certainly has delivered and supports a lot of affordable housing today, and so that's part of why their strategy works at council, because they are delivering and things that mean something important to the city. They're close in, it's dense, it supports housing and jobs.
Just reflecting on that, I'd say that, streetcar was extraordinarily successful in the Pearl District in creating affordable housing. Track record in South Waterfront was not as rosy, and for the Central East Side, I think we're still watching to a degree. Going back to the geographic equity question, part of our recommendation in the comp plan was that there should be East Portland transit projects that kind of come before the next streetcar, and I think we're seeing that to a degree in the enhanced transit communities work. So grateful for that, but I think I heard you say you've got good geographic equity data on past projects, but my question is, has this eligibility list gone through a geographic equity analysis?
I'm going to let Rich.
I mean, we do have charts showing kind of the overall project list, 160-some projects, and how they relate geographically through the city.
Okay.
Unfortunately, we don't have those with us now, but we can certainly share that information with you.
Okay, I'd appreciate that.
And I know last time we had the overall map, the projects, and there's 160 projects on this list. If you compare that to the 2007 project list that had like 40 something, and you'd be amazed that these projects exist throughout the city. And part of that is the methodology that makes more of individual projects eligible for the growth component.
I guess what I'm looking for is, okay, we have good reasons to do streetcar. We want to make sure we get the conditions put on that so that it delivers all the things we want. But I'm kind of looking to see if there's a counterweight. The streetcar projects are going to be close in for the reasons we talked about. Is there a counterweight in East Portland, or I guess in Southwest there'll be Southwest Corridor, but in East Portland, is there a counterweight for that within the project list so the resource allocation is being balanced? And that's kind of what I'm trying to get to.
Yeah, I think one of the things that maybe you could recommend to council is not only the affordable housing, but you would like to see geographic balance in delivering the capital projects on an annual or a cumulative basis. Come up with some recommendation.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi.
Just to add, for the budget project for the city, and that's current spending, they do have geographic mapping, and it'd be great to see geographic mapping, and also having and showing the priorities, because perhaps am I understanding this correctly, that about half of these projects are not going to be done because of the 50%, or is that too simple of an idea of how it's going to work?
I think we're hoping all the projects will be done, and it relies on outside funding sources. So the, you want to say more?
I do think some of the challenge is that it's a 10-year list. So as we've learned now, coming at the end of this 10-year, priorities have changed. So there are projects that are important more to communities. So there'll be certainly projects that don't get built.
It's just that if all your projects are at the end of the 10-year list, they're probably not, there's a chance that they won't be gotten to, or they'll be started at the year 10. So the priority is really important to me.
Yeah, definitely.
So we're doing a better job internally to PBOT, and Mark, Lear, and Shoshana Oppenheim. No, Shoshana Cohen. They are delivering a system for high pipeline projects to do just that, make sure that we have all of our grant cycles lined up and our SDC cycles and our internal budget cycles so that we can be best positioned to get those funding requests in and that funding provided to us. So we've put them in charge of that over maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and we are seeing a lot of success in that alignment. So that's the strategy, that we continue to rely on external sources to deliver our capital program in PBOT, not base it on 100% on developers paying for that capital growth. All right, single family. All right, so single family.
But real quick, I just want to make sure, Eli, if you have been having a hard time tracking, we are now going to tackle the residential and single family portion.
Okay, I'm hearing you now off my earbud. I can
Okay.
jump ahead to that. Is this a good time to
Well,
chime in on that, or is staff going to provide a intro?
do you have a preference, Christina, if you want to provide an intro, or do you want Eli to just jump on in? Your call.
Let me just say something, and then I'll have Eli jump in. We're continuing to look into single family. So part of what we embrace with coming to you and going out to the community is receiving feedback. We are using the best scientific data that we have available to come up with our methodology and our rates. So what Eli has asked us to do is consider the rates that the Parks Bureau had used based on some Portland State University collection of data from a nationwide survey. So we are continuing to work with Fair and Peers and Portland State University and Kelly Clifton to find the best data that can translate between residential square footage for single family and PM peak hour trips generated. There is correlation between square footage of houses and the number of people living there. That doesn't necessarily directly correlate to PM peak hour trips. So that's the work that we are continuing to do. So it's not done. We have definitely looked at the 5 tiers of single family that Parks Bureau has put in their rate study to see what we could align. And we do know that for very, very small dwelling units, the trips are less. So the ADU type of developments, we recommended moving forward with half of the total single family rate. We decided to take that from very, very tiny to match the second tier of Parks SDC single family at 1,200 square foot and less to be that rate. So we are moving forward with a recommendation that there are 2 single family rates at this time, 1,200 square foot and less, and then anything above 1,200 square feet. But we will continue to look at it. Part of the recommendation too is maybe we have an in-depth discussion with Eli, and once we get more information from Kelly Clifton and her partners at Portland State and Trek, that we can make a better recommendation on how to align the Parks SDC and our SDCs with respect to the data that we hope to get on person trips and size of households.
Christine, I just have a quick question, and then I'll let Eli jump in. What's your timing? Is your goal to have that understood and analyzed prior to going to council?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Perfect.
So we've been working on it this week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Eli, all yours.
Okay, thank you, and thank you for the opportunity, Christine and company, to speak about this in person when I'm back in town. I come into this obviously with some history. I have a wonky passion on system development charges for some reason, and I just wanted to share that perspective with staff and with the commission to know where I'm coming from on this. There's a long history in the United States and locally of jurisdictions charging system development charges, sometimes called impact fees, to cover costs for parks, transportation, sewer, water, what have you, based on housing unit count. And that's an unfortunate history for a couple reasons. One of them is that houses don't use those infrastructure systems of cities, and people in various ways do. So at best, counting housing units is a convenient proxy for those actual system impacts. Convenient because it's easy to count them. But it leads to some unfortunate consequences, one of which is that it's very common to have system development charges be the same for a 1,000 square foot house or a 5,000 square foot house, despite the demonstrable evidence that more people live in larger homes on average, more toilets flushed, more people using parks, transportation systems, the like. And then the other is that it gives the market a price signal to build larger homes, because if you're paying the same fee regardless of home size, that's one of many factors which steer the market towards building big homes, and that's not consistent with the policy objectives. Although policy objectives are not the main driving force for lifting SDCs, scientific data is. So it was disturbing to me. This is funny, I'm looking at the screen as a speaker where I'm speaking out of it. It was disturbing to me to see the report in response to my question from the consultant in 3 places at least, saying that there is no connection between number of residents and the size of home. And I understand transportation mentioning that they're trying to link trips to size of home, but as a fundamental discussion in their report, they decided that they're going to be counting people, just like parks did, because people use transportation choices. So they've already made that leap. And with that in mind, the connection that needs to be made is what's a good proxy for counting people. People are hard to count. And I was perplexed that the data which parks used, which PBOT, which is with 30 minutes, it was easy to pull up. There's 3 places they say that data doesn't exist. So I think I just worry about an institutional bias against doing a graded system for levying charges. And this works in multifamily as well. I mean, there the data set yield, the recommendation is that multifamily pay 0.6 what they pay for single family, and the data behind that is from 100 cities across the country, some general averaging. But all multifamily is treated the same, whether it's a studio apartment or a 3-bedroom townhouse attached to another 3-bedroom townhouse, even though there's great evidence showing that more people live in the latter than the former, and they use transportation systems and other systems as well. So I guess I'm encouraged that there's a willingness from staff to discuss this further, but I really kind of think the onus should be on, I mean, you have to come up with some nexus, I think the legal term, between the impact and on the system and how the charge is levied. And I think it would actually, the more intuitive relationship is that you count people and people relate to home size. And I think if PBOT is suggesting that just counting units in multifamily is a better proxy for impact moving transportation than other available sources, then they should need to make that case rather than using that as an assumed baseline. So that's, I think that's kind of summarized my comment. I mean, the suggestion I had from the Planning Commission would be to recommend in a letter that PBOT break into more categories than they have instead of just the 1,200 over or under, ideally matching parks for convenience of implementation, but it wouldn't have to be that they rely on data from the 2015 American Community Survey or the 2011 one if you want to use old data. And then for the multifamily, do the same scaling based on home size for single family, and if there's data available to show that on average a multifamily unit generates fewer trips or than the equivalent size single family unit, then just do a across the board maybe reduction by some percentage of what the fee would be in the multifamily context. I don't know whether that data exists. I'm guessing that among those 100 surveys that maybe it's out there. And so I'll try and hear by phone if there's more discussion on this, but that's my recommendation to follow up at this point.
If that's okay, I'm going to kind of quickly jump in and piggyback on that, because I've seen, I've had clients, developers, who have, and I'm more talking multifamily arena, who are choosing to purposely build smaller units to avoid paying the SDC charges. So I think what we're starting to see is a trend of a lot of one-bedroom units to make sure that, like I said, they don't have to hit the higher SDC charges, which has me concerned that we're now not creating family housing. So I just want that perspective added as well to the discussion or the thought process of how do we not penalize getting family units built. I don't know that I exactly have the answer. One thought that kind of popped into my head is making sure that affordable units do not get SDC charges on them. So at least perhaps we can get some affordable family units built. And maybe that'll incentivize developers to go ahead and designate some of the more family unit size as affordable, or just build them and then they'll designate them as their affordable units. That's just one thought, but I just would like to keep that in mind. Yeah, please, Eli.
Oh, sorry, okay. I think those are great points. And I think that the rigorous scientific way to approach this would be to say, start off with the best proxy we have, which is house size, and then that can get adjusted based on trying to hit policy goals, much like we did with residential rates and recycling. We started off with this is how much we ought to charge based on straight math for each size dumpster unit or pickup service plan. And then we can say, well, we should skew it a little bit, way this or that to achieve a policy goal. And so this is what already happens with the waiver of system development charges for accessory dwelling units. There's no way that it's that's a fair proposition long term. I've said for a while. It certainly helps stimulate the change of practice, and it was very useful on that front. And I think that at some point it should go back to having people who build accessory dwelling units pay some level of system development charge, because that's the fair way to go. And I think that the same case could be made. I mean, that's effectively what the Transportation Bureau is proposing on the 1,200 square foot threshold, is to do a little hand waving and say, okay, let's try and support city policy objectives by charging a lower rate for smaller homes, even though they purport that the data doesn't support that. I would suggest that we start with what the data clearly supports, and then if we want to achieve some policy goals like affordable housing or family-sized multi-dwelling units, then we could propose layering that on top a little bit as a slight deviation.
I'm all for that as well, Eli. Okay, any further comments or discussion on that point?
So just thank you again for delving into that, Eli. It's definitely pushing our consultant to further explore where the data came from the 2015 American Housing Survey. We're wanting to use local data as much as we can, so they're going to be looking into that. As far as the stratification and the methodology, the state law requires we have a methodology. We want to make sure that it is got the right amount of nexus and rough proportionality, because this overall is based on the fair amount of money that developers should pay to help PBOT build out the transportation system to maintain a certain level of service for all those new users. So we need to strike that right balance of what do we assess development. We have to have a methodology. It doesn't have to be perfect, but we would like to make it as robust and as sound as we possibly can. We are moving forward with some new strategies as far as the person trip.
And there's not a lot of cities and counties that have this methodology in place. So we have to rely on what we have, what we can get over the next 10 years, and then what we can extrapolate and use scientific kind of methods to get answers to. So we will look at this, and we would like to have a conversation with you, Eli, and hopefully in the next week, I think is what we were talking to our consultant about. I'm going to look at Rich here because he's going to be leading this effort with Dave. Oh, and I guess just one other thing, as far as the developers trying to fall below a certain threshold, you know, Dave does the assessments for our SDCs, and I think a lot of times that is what you see is what's that magic number to pay a lower rate. We looked at where transportation lies within the city as far as our SDC rate. We also looked comprehensively where the city of Portland lies with other local communities. Transportation still is one of the lower rates that we assess. The city of Portland is in the middle of the pack. We've been having conversations with another consultant about, do people move, developers move out of the city because of our SDC charges? And it's not the conclusion that they are seeing. So they've done some studies on that, but that is generally the conclusion that they are drawing is the SDCs are not what is going to drive somebody out of Portland. But
I just want to clarify, I wasn't saying it was going to drive developers out of Portland. I'm saying it's driving the type and size of units that are getting built in multifamily. And now I want to clarify that too, because I cannot speak to the single family market.
Thank you.
Okay, so what I'd like to do you have a quick clarification or maybe a motion, Andre? So we could somewhat try to wrap up?
Well, I had a question, and then, did you have a question, Michelle?
Can we,
Okay.
and do you wanted to wrap up, or were you concluding something?
No,
Rich?
just, I mean, we suggested to meet with Eli to go,
Okay.
because there's a lot
Sorry.
of data and details to go
Yeah.
into. I mean, just capturing some of the park data, it is looking at the trips per resident. And so when you look at a house, not just the residents are making trips, there's deliveries and visitors and other things that aren't captured in the American household survey.
Great, thank you. Okay, so Michelle and then Andre, and then perhaps
Yeah.
we could try to wrap it up if possible.
This is just sort of an anecdotal comment, but I know that I grew up in a family of 4 and had a family of my own of 4, and the size of unit was completely different. So I'm curious to see what you find there, because in my personal experience, the number of people in the house didn't control how big the house was, so, or, you know, the composition. So I'm surprised
Yeah.
to hear that. I think if you control for other things, you'll get a different outcome.
Michelle took part of my comment.
You can say it again.
So I will let Michelle. The other thing that is just a concern, kind of my history with PBOT, is that I know these SDCs have to be legally defensible, and so I guess I'm supportive of going through and looking at methodology and transferring to your direction, but I want to make sure.
I'm hearing, I'm not sure what anyone just heard on the earbud, comment I wanted to say something about.
Okay, but I want to make sure that we're, you know, as a city, that we're putting in a policy that is, I guess, to Michelle's point, is equitable for an increasingly diverse population as it comes to the city. And to Catherine's point, that, you know, the size of the unit from a multifamily dwelling standpoint, that equitable side becomes an issue, because the size of the unit is not a determinant of how many people are in that household in certain populations. So that may be a problem when you get to the legal side of that, in saying if it's under 1,200 square feet, it's only going to have 1 or 2 people, and it may not be true. for certain populations in certain areas of Portland.
Yes.
Well said.
Eli, were you trying to make a comment?
I was, yeah, I'm trying to hear it both ways. I mean, I know that, as Michelle pointed out, families can be independent of unit size. The real question at hand, I think, is on average, what's a better proxy for the impact on the transportation system, counting homes or counting people? So on average, there are more people in large units, on average, and that's the, so I guess, well, I'm not finding my way to articulate this all that well right now. There always will be deviation from average, but it is also unfair if someone pays the same amount for a studio as they do for a 4-bedroom penthouse apartment, and that's the way the current system's set. So, as proposed. So it's trying to figure out which of those approaches is more fair, knowing that neither of them is perfect. That's what I'm trying to get to with it.
Yeah. Would you like to counter, Michelle?
Not counter, but I do think it needs more analysis, but maybe you don't use average, maybe you use mode or something. But I'm not convinced that average is the right, and it's coming from personal experience.
One of the things that Kelly Clifton recommended is looking into the data to see if, the variants are scientifically significant, statistically significant. Sorry, I'm not an expert in that data interpretation, but she is. So she's, I think, going to look at that and see if there are any deviants or any averages or anything that she can pull from. We do keep hearing that context for trips matters so much. And certainly I have my own personal experiences. My daughter's friends who are in high school, they have experiences like Andre, you've been talking about. So we need the data to back up our recommendation to our rate study. And so that's really what we're looking for, to make our best, use our best judgment to put the plan forward for funding this system for the next 10 years.
Thank you. Any additional comments? And if not, I'm not seeing any. I think the matter at hand now is, are we comfortable making a recommendation to take to City Council? And if so, I had heard a few items on the table as maybe to add to that recommendation. And I'll just kind of summarize them 1, 2, 3, and then if I can get somebody to maybe make a motion. One was making sure an affordable housing component or strategy is tied to streetcar. Another was geographic allocation, making sure that we are including that in the analysis or the methodology. And then the third item is the methodology for residential SDC fee setting analysis. I don't know now, I'm lost at words, but I think that's something like that. Is there any other kind of items?
I would like to, on Christine's last comment about refining the methodology over the next 10 years, to kind of put people out on refining that methodology to figure out how to count people in a unit by use, so that 10 years from now, when you get to the next SDC, either we have it or there's somewhere in the nation that has refined that methodology, so we're not in this pickle again.
Can I tell you how excited I am that you said that? So, yes, we're doing that from this project to level of service. He's cutting in on the excitement.
Okay, Eli.
It's just if the current language is used, it creates, I think, an implementation challenge where the proposal is multifamily would cover apartments, duplex units, townhomes. I can't remember what else was on that list. And I just wanted to note that those are all building code definitions, and sometimes zoning calls those same things by different names. So for example, if I were living at SDC and someone brought in a project that had a house, a duplex, maybe a mixture of the two on a multi-dwelling lot where all the structures are detached, planning would call that a multi-dwelling development. But the structures would be single-family structures, and it might be very hard to interpret how to apply the SDC, and it would make a big difference because it would be 2 times with, if the SDC, if it's treated as homes, than if it were treated as multifamily. So I guess providing some clarity on that would make that not be a challenging thing for discretionary application by whoever happens to be figuring out how much SDCs will apply to that project.
Yeah, I was just asking Dave what we rely on, and you want to say, or could I maybe sit up here?
So largely, we would assess that following how the buildings are determined by building code. So duplexes or triplexes up to 3 units are considered single families. For our purposes, we'd call it a triplex, 3 single families. More than that, 4 more are assessed at the multifamily rate. Condos, townhouses, row houses, you mentioned, we currently, under our current system, we have a separate rate category for those. As proposed, those would be lumped in on the multifamily rate. I don't know if that really answers.
Yeah, and I think our procedures guide spells out that we rely on the building definitions of them. But certainly, if there's more refinement needed, we will continue to add that in.
That has been a point of maybe some confusion in the past, and it might be something we need to refine a little, how we look at developments of a lot of single-family homes on one lot that, planning may consider like
multifamily development.
Multifamily development.
But there's still 10 single-family
But
houses
they're
on
10
one lot.
single-family units, exactly. So
From the building code, there's still 10 single-family homes.
right, and that's how we would assess them, as 10 single-family homes.
Shall I try and wrap this up in a motion? Okay. So I would move that we recommend the overall program to City Council, and that additionally, we recommend that that council assess, in the light of overall transportation funding needs, whether the 50% of need target is appropriate. That before this goes to council, that some clear exhibits analyzing geographic equity be prepared. That for streetcar to tap this funding source, there should be clear demonstration of achieving affordable housing, job access, and displacement mitigation goals. That the project should continue to refine the methodology for residential units, both for this round on its way to council and to improve future methodology to make this more accurate the next time around. Did I miss anything? Think I got it all? Okay.
Second.
Further discussion? I was pausing for you, Eli.
Oh, I'm hearing in my left ear, and what I'm hearing sounds good, so I will vote support.
Okay, we'll call your vote in a little bit. Thank you, though. So, any other questions, comments? If not, Catherine, let's call the roll, please.
So I'm going to do them last, but then you absolutely last. Okay. Baugh,
Yes.
Larcell,
Yes.
Red,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
St. Martin, Hauk, and Spivak.
Yes for me?
We might be.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We appreciate you bringing this to us and having the discussions. Thank you.
To actually.
Next on the agenda is the design overlay zoning amendments. This is a briefing. Yeah.
Yeah? That's okay. Oh, okay. On this,
I will make sure that if Mike doesn't have a chance to say it, it gets said. But go
I
for it.
have his comments also. Hello, good
Perfect.
afternoon. My name is Sandra Wood. I'm with the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability, and I'm here with my colleagues to talk to you about the Design Overlay Zone Amendments package. And this is a joint package with, between the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability and the Bureau of Development Services. So I'll go ahead and introduce my colleagues who are working with me on this. So Catherine Hardinger, who is playing a different role tonight, is working on our team as an overall coordinator of our package, which we'll talk to you about in just a bit. Phil Naimany is one of our project managers for one piece. Laura Lillard, the project manager for another piece, and Stacy Monroe is with the Bureau of Development Services on another piece. And missing from our team today is Cara Fioravanti, and I just wanted to mention her because she is the supervising planner for the design review and historic review in BDS, and we're working closely with her on that too. So what we're doing today is sharing the scope of work, so we're really early in the process. And we wanted to go through the scope so you know the lay of the land and how we're dividing up our work. And we wanted to reserve the last 15 minutes to get your initial thoughts on the purpose of design overlay zone. And Laura will walk you through that when we get to that. Just as a reminder, last year we had hired a consultant led by Mark Hinshaw from Walker Macy, and actually one of our consultant teammates is here, Kathy Cordless from Angelo Planning Group. And we hired them to assess the whole design overlay zone and how it was working. In April, as you might recall, we came to the commission and Mark presented the findings and the recommendations. We also took that to City Council. So we have a bunch of recommendations from our consultant, which is largely what we'll be working off of in the next year or 2 years, really, and that's what we're working on implementing. There are some handouts in the back of the room, which I've distributed, and that's what we're going to be working off of today. So if you'll go ahead and direct your attention to the first handout, which is this three-pronged handout, which is entitled Design Overlay Zone Amendments. So the first thing is, what are we calling this? DOZA stood for Design Overlay Zone Assessment. We're keeping our acronym of Design Overlay Zone Amendments, though. So we thought that was pretty clever. It's
It's nice that you can have fun with this.
yeah. So it's a package of projects, and there are 3 projects that comprise this package. Each has its own content, its own timeline, its own recommending bodies, and its own lead bureaus, but we're moving in unison together. There was a considerable interest at the City Council to move quickly on some of the recommendations. So that's part of the reason that we have split the legislative piece into DOZA process and DOZA tools. So when we looked at the recommendations, we really felt comfortable moving forward with a quicker timeline on the process improvements, which Phil will walk you through, but felt that we needed 2 years to talk about the DOZA tools themselves because they're quite subjective, and we want to get those right and aligned, and we have 2 commissions to work through for that. So that's why we have DOZA process and DOZA tools, and then DOZA administration, which Stacy will walk you through on that. So with that, I'll pass it over to Phil so he can describe the DOZA process project.
Evening, Phil Naimany with Bureau of Planning Sustainability, and I'm going to focus on the left side of the document. I look at this as a three-legged stool, so if you want to look at it in that standpoint, I'm going to go over the DOZA process piece. This is going to be a legislative project that focuses on making changes to the zoning code, Title 33, and our hope is to get this through the entire process in about 14 months. So it will be the first thing to kind of go through to PSC and to City Council. You can see down there, there's a list of 5 items. There's really 4 main parts, and then we kind of have a placeholder for things that may come up as we're looking at these different fixes. The first item mentions amend the purpose statement for design review, and that is actually a little bit more than that. We are going to be looking at the consultant's recommendation that they had, which was to clarify and review the purpose and scope of design overlay zone. So obviously the purpose of the design overlay zone is very important, but then the scope of what that the zone and the design review incorporates is also going to be something we look at. So that is something that will be part of this first process. Both Laura and I will be working on that. The second item there is to adjust the thresholds for design review. That will be looking at both the exemptions, that things that may be exempt for design review, when design review applies, or when design overlay zone is what kind of development it applies to, as well as the different thresholds. I think if you recall, the assessment had a pretty in-depth chart of how they were looking at potentially splitting up whether things would be exempt or community design standards and things like that. I don't know that we're going to necessarily follow that directly, but we're going to use that as sort of an inspiration to come up with a list of thresholds for what type of design review gets implemented. The third item listed there is to align the steps of the land use review process potentially with how a typical applicant's design process is done. This is something that Catherine actually is going to be involved in considerably, and we'll probably be partnering with BDS to kind of see if we can have some sort of synergy between what applicants do when they're going through design process and the drawings and what our review process looks at. And then the fourth item is to improve the public notice requirements. Some of that may involve the zoning code, so if there are some things that we have to change in the zoning code that are specific to the types of notification, we'll make those changes. A lot of the changes probably will be more administrative, which Stacy will get at a little bit as well. And then as we go through that process, we're going to, I'm assuming, find some other things that maybe need to get changed above and beyond that may be related to these 4 topics, but are in addition to that. And actually, Mike's brought up the issue of other membership within the Design Commission, and that is something that we've kind of put in this fifth bullet. So that's kind of what we're looking at for the process. As you can see, it's a fairly quick timeline. We're going to be going over the timeline in a little bit here, but I'm going to go ahead and pass it on to Laura to go over the tools.
Hello, Laura Lillard. So as Sandra mentioned, I'm managing the tools piece of the 3-legged stool. And one of the most wide sweeping recommendations from the assessment was to revise the tools that carry out the design overlay zone for areas outside of the central city. And you may recall this from the many DOZA briefings that we gave you, but we have a state mandated 2-track system. And so that means we have 2 major tools. And so I just brought my visual aids because I carry them around with me everywhere now. The community design standards, and I didn't bring the entire zoning code, but just the section that pertains to the community design standards 218. They live in the zoning code, therefore they are under the purview of this commission. They are clear and objective standards, they're prescriptive, they're quantitative, and they do not require judgment. Community design guidelines live outside of the zoning code within a separate document, and this is it. And like all design guidelines, they're under the purview of the Design Commission, which is unlike standards. And they are also flexible statements of design direction, but they're not quantitative. They require a land use review either by design review staff like Stacy, sits on the design review team, or through design commission in a hearing. The consultant team in the assessment observed that these two tools, though they apply to the same areas, generally do not match each other, and the outcomes do not necessarily reach the same design quality, and that they both actually need badly updating, and the consultant team gave us a few ideas on how to do that. They recommended that we sync the standards found in the code with the design guidelines, and that they follow the same purpose as sort of the direction setting guide, and roughly the same outline. And you might remember this from the assessment. But because the tools each has a different lead commission, the tools amendments will take on, as Sandra mentioned, a very different and longer schedule, and will involve a few joint briefings similar to what we did in the assessment piece. So Sandra will go over how each of the commissions will play a part in shaping the standards and guidelines, and then we'll go over the timeline.
Hello, good evening. I'm Stacy Monroe with BDS, the Design and Historic Review Team. And I'm going to be managing the DOZA administration elements. These are generally non-legislative. Some of them do have legislative components that we will partner with BPS, such as realigning the process steps and improving the public notice and involvement requirements. But the majority are administrative work that staff can do, and we have been doing since 2015. We have been working since 2015 to increase the efficiency of the design review process. We've seen a huge increase in projects, a need for more staffing to handle that workload. So internally, prior to DOZA, we've been doing our own improvements. DOZA, the assessment identified additional requirements or additional improvements that we needed to do, so we are folding that into our work plan. Some of those that are listed here on this handout include increase in staff capacity. We have done that over the past several years and continue to add staff. We have 3 open positions right now that we are staffing up. We are finding ways to better manage commission meetings and processes. As Phil mentioned, improving the public notice and involvement requirements. We are looking at developing new tools to support the commission deliberation. We have worked on creating a matrix with the design guidelines, which are the approval criteria for the commission, to help focus discussions and create more efficient meetings. So that's a tool that we have been working on. We have been doing more trainings for staff and commission, and we'll continue those, and they'll become more focused. And again, realigning the process steps, we'll be working with BPS on that as well. So the timing for this, the administration, again, is ongoing. It will be just moving forward with the entire project, the legislative components. And we're not sure if they're going to be rolling out monthly, quarterly, or how they're going to be rolling out, but as soon as we create a more efficient process, we'll be putting those into effect immediately. So that's the plan for now.
So before we move on, I think, Mike, are you on the line? Because you had a question. I'm just going to repeat your question, Mike, because there's such a delay. Mike's question was whether the composition of the design commission would be looked at during one of these 3 projects, and the answer to that is yes. During the DOZA process project, we'll be looking at the composition of the commission, just like the planning commission. It's stipulated in the zoning code. Should I wait for Mike to react? Mike, I'm not going to wait for you to react because there's such a delay. And I got 2 emails from you about this, so I'm going to assume that's good. Eli had a question also about whether the scope of design review, in other words, when a project comes in for design review and goes to BDS for review, what's on the table to be reviewed, and would Florida area ratio and heights and setbacks, are all those on the table for the design commission to discuss? And the answer to that is yes. And as Phil mentioned, in the DOZA process, we will change that first item to say clarify the purpose and scope of design overlay.
like the idea.
Oh,
you,
thanks,
Mike.
Mike. Okay, so those were two questions we had about this. Does anybody else have any questions about the package and the separation of work here?
Katie?
Joe, do you have a question?
It looks like Joe's dying to jump in.
Well, no, I thought Mike talked over your last part of that answer. So just one more time on the scope, are on the,
On the scope, yeah, so we will be looking at what is the scope of design review, and the code stipulates what is on the table to be discussed during design review. And the big sticking points are FAR and height.
and to the extent that what's coming out of the state legislature now makes that clear, or limits our, gives us clear direction on limiting that, we'll have to reflect that, and we'll take this opportunity to reflect that in our code too.
Right, okay, ready to,
Oh, I think
okay,
Katie, yeah.
Yeah, I had a question. How does this affect Gateway, the Gateway region? Are you, or are you talking about this now, or?
Yeah.
Is it good-
Well, today we're just sharing the scope of work, and as you probably recall, in the consultant's recommendation, they recommended that Gateway be treated like the rest of the city, not like Central City, so that in Gateway, property owners would have the two-track system. They could use the discretionary track, but they could also be afforded the community design standards using those that Laura was talking to you about. So in DOZA process, that would be considered under adjust the thresholds for design review.
Okay,
Yeah.
and so when would those be adjusted?
Those will be, Phil's going to start working on them now, and then we'll be back to the planning commission with those, and we'll talk through the schedule in just a
Okay,
second.
great.
Mhm. All right. So the next handout is this one with a bunch of blue circles. And we just wanted to take a moment before we talked about schedule, about just sharing with you that this package really relies on both bureaus to be coordinating, and also relies on both the Planning Commission and the Design Commission to be collaborating. One of the main recommendations is that the standards and the guidelines are synced, but there's two different recommending bodies going to City Council with this. So in our scoping and figuring out how we're moving forward with these projects, we just wanted to share that with you so that you're aware of that. What this diagram shows, well, what the table shows at the front, at the top, are the three projects and some basic components of those three projects: who the lead bureau is, what type of project is it, who the project manager is, which we've discussed, and then who the lead commission is. For DOZA process, those are all zoning code amendments, so the Planning and Sustainability Commission is the recommending body to City Council, and you'll follow your traditional process, which would be shown down here in the blue circles. So you're the lead commission. When we publish our discussion draft, so that's our draft to the community, we'll provide you with a briefing on that. When we get to our proposed draft, that's our formal proposal to the commission. You'll hold a public hearing, make a recommendation, and then you'll take the recommendation to City Council like you do in all legislative projects. For DOZA tools, you'll have that role for the design standards because those are embedded in the zoning code. But when it comes to the design guidelines, you'll be wearing a different hat. You'll be providing testimony to the Design Commission because they're the ones who actually make the recommendation to City Council. So for the Design Commission, you'll play a role that you haven't traditionally played. I don't think probably any of you maybe have played that. You'll be in the right-hand column, which is called the Partner Commission. When there's a discussion draft out, we'll be here for a briefing to let you know what we're talking to the community about. You can provide comments to staff at that point. When the proposed draft that's our proposal to the Design Commission in that sense, you'll be providing testimony to the Design Commission. And then when they take that to the City Council, you can provide testimony to City Council. So it's a little different role. So that's why we took some time to articulate that. Does that make sense? Okay. So the next handout is the one with all the color, the sorbet colors. getting hungry maybe. So this is our schedule, this is our draft schedule, and we're here before we're doing the public launch because we wanted to double check with all of you on this. This schedule shows the process on the left column and the DOZA tools on the right column. We didn't include administration because, like Stacy said, those are ongoing improvements that will be ongoing and they don't need commission action. So the green boxes are where the Planning and Sustainability Commission has touch points with the projects. As you see from the very top, here we are with the project scope on June 27th. We'll be going to the Design Commission, which is in the purple box, a couple times in July, also to the Historic Landmarks Commission in July. Then we'll be back on July 25th, which is a month from now, to have a more in-depth conversation about what is the purpose of design overlay zone on the 25th with you. We felt that we needed that overarching discussion before we can actually embark on doing our work. And so Laura will, like I said, we're hoping to spend the last 15 minutes or so of today's conversation on that. And then in August, we'll do our actual public launch, letting people know the three-legged stool and who's doing what and what the timeline is and how they can participate. So I'm going to have Phil go through what the DOZA process is and talk you through exactly what you were asking, Commissioner Larcel, about when you'll be seeing those changes.
Can I just jump in real quick? Just a time check with everybody, because it is just about 7:45. You think you probably have about 15 more minutes or so of presentation? Is that what I'm gathering?
Yeah, we can do 5 more minutes of this. And then 15 minutes for purpose, maybe 20 minutes.
Okay, so does everybody have 20 more minutes that they can stay with us? Okay, great. Thank you.
So once again, the DOZA process piece there is focused on the left-hand side of that schedule, and I'm not going to go through each piece of it, of course, but this follows a fairly standard legislative process. And so what we'll be doing over the next few months is actually working on code and having some in-house conversations, and then publishing a discussion draft in November. And so at that point, we'll be doing a lot of the outreach, and we'll be obviously touching base with different interest groups and some of the stakeholders on that, and taking their comment. And then during that time, we'll also come back to the PSC and provide a briefing about maybe some initial thoughts and updates on this schedule. Then the proposed draft is what will be brought forward in front of the PSC. We're looking at having that come out end of February, and then the PSC hearings being at the end of March into April. Once again, that's where kind of depends on how quickly things get through the process. But then once that happens, we go through the recommended draft, which is a PSC recommendation in this case, because it's all going to be Title 33 code changes. So you'll be the recommending body on that. And then it'll go to City Council. And then what our hope is that these amendments are effective sometime during the summer. I have August here as the month. And that would be essentially the time when the thresholds would be amended and potentially changes in the Gateway Plan District about what would trigger design review and not trigger design review, and what type of, whether they could use the standards or not, potentially could be in that part.
Yeah, the reason I asked the question was I've just been hearing that they're ready for the change now, so that's like a year off.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, things do move slowly sometimes, but just wondering if it could be done faster.
I mean, one of the things we heard at the City Council was trying to get something back in a year, but essentially this schedule is very similar to what we do with our recaps, which is about a 1-year process from getting that work plan approved to getting the code.
And you can see also from this that a year really means that staff is working on it for 4 months. Because then we need a public process and to talk to the community about it. The commission needs their time, et cetera. Yep.
So for the tools process, which is on the right-hand column, as Sandra said, we will start this process after we kind of have more of a working definition of the purpose of design overlay. And then we will start to develop a conceptual framework, which I'm using that term to describe a working outline that gives the basic direction for both of those tools because they are to be synced together. So we will develop that conceptual framework, and then we will come to the joint committee that I described earlier to high-density development near transit facilities. But as we've applied the design overlay zone, more recently, the intent has been actually more growth-oriented, such as the recent expansion to include all of the town centers and the inner ring corridors that will experience significant growth. Current thinking also reflects that good design follow the 3 tenets described in B3, and I know we spent a lot of time with you all discussing those 3 tenets, and those are listed here as well: context, public realm, and quality and permanence. So just sort of thinking more broadly about how those 3 tenets might fit into the purpose statement.
Chris?
So those are certainly important values. They're also very broad statements that if I tried hard, I could probably expand to cover almost any consideration. So is there any desire to put bumpers on those so that we know that they have limits and they're applied to a certain degree, but we're not trying to regulate down to the last millimeter?
I think the purpose statement doesn't necessarily have to be concerned about the last millimeter. I think that's something that we'll have to negotiate in the tools. But I guess if you think about a bumper for the purpose statement and for design overlay, in general, it should be how do these things reflect in the physical manifestation of a building on a site in these areas, if that makes sense. So something like context can be fairly abstract, but if you're looking at a building, you know, that's a very physical thing. So that kind of provides you a bumper, I guess.
I think maybe to Chris's point, and this was, I think I expressed to you guys as we were going through the assessment process, the light bulb that went off in my head with my PSC hat on is, how does this all tie back to our overall comp plan goals? And perhaps the purpose statement of context tying back to what is the goal you're trying to achieve with the comp plan with that purpose statement, and that starts to act as a bumper. So if you're tying it back to equity, let's use as an example, how does equity manifest itself in achieving context, and what do you know, and anyway, it's one way to think about it.
Which reminds me, actually, I should probably mention when the comp plan was adopted, you know, there's 2 design-y chapters. Chapter 3, which talks about the urban design framework and the urban form. And then chapter 4 is about design more on the ground. So I think that's something we're going to have to figure out with the design overlay, which of those 2. It's probably more of chapter 4. So you might want to take a look at chapters 3 and 4 before our next discussion.
Could I recommend that you send those to us again in an email attachment, Catherine, or links to those, and it just will make it easier for everybody to make sure, and as a reminder.
Okay.
Thanks. Sure. Andre.
Catherine brought in something that the word context is a fairly broad word, and I was trying to dig it up in the comp plan in terms of the definition. But when we look at neighborhoods, and certain neighborhoods have a cultural sensitivity, they have a design and a culture to them because of the people that live there. How will this design overlay, and we've certainly targeted those neighborhoods, especially in East Portland, for development, but how do those neighborhoods get the development that is culturally sensitive to the buildings that are there today? Because context of a building down relative to Inner Portland to 82nd is different. And how does the purpose statement make sure that the design commission is looking at that? The other thing, and I'm not sure how, I've asked the design commission people when they've come before in their concerns of, how do we make sure that context does not mean that East Portland may have a perceived value of less, so you're able to, from a contextual standpoint, say, well, the building's equal to East Portland, but it's not the quality we will demand in another neighborhood outside of East Portland. So how does, because East Portland may be lower income today, how do we make sure that the quality that comes to low-income neighborhoods is not diminished because of the context of where you're building in a purpose statement? And the comp plan deals with that, but I don't know, I'll look in 3 and 4 and see if it.
So this is a very challenging process. But what I'd like to see is that DOZA functions as an enhancement to our city and versus handcuffs to appropriate change and innovation, and that context not be context set in 1900. Cultural context is vital and happening every day around us, around the world. So we do need to sort of take into account how we function in the modern world as well.
Go ahead, Michelle.
So I didn't know how to say that, but that was part of my concern, because I'm sort of getting hung up on the word conservation and how that gets applied later on. That, you know, we've said there's a certain amount of change that we want to see, and I want to make sure that we don't handcuff the change that we're trying to see in the areas.
And that word conservation is in the existing purpose. Yeah, so that's why they need to look at it.
Right, I've also just provided, in case, just as a reminder, the current purpose statement. So that's why that's listed under that second heading, where it says chapter 33.420. And then I just took the liberty of highlighting places where I think, when reading the recommendation from the DOZA report, it signified for me a shift in the direction, and that's why conservation is highlighted. And you know, it would be nice to get your thoughts on that, because I'm taking from the recommendation that maybe that's a word that we might shift and replace with something a little bit above, you know, in an umbrella of responding to context, which could mean, in some cases, conservation, but in other cases, maybe it doesn't.
But in a perfect world, the purpose statement's just sort of background to inform the detailed, every other section that's going to follow, right? So if we get this right, for the most part, you won't have to go to the purpose. It's in the really odd case where something's not clear, you'll go back and look at the purpose.
Right, but it definitely will guide our work, and it will certainly guide the tools, which is the 2-year-long process, so we need to get it pretty good working definition.
And so that's what we're hoping to do on the 25th, is to get a good working definition so we can proceed with the work.
Any other comments?
I'm not sure, this is Eli. I don't know if I can't hear that well. Is this the okay time to chime in?
It's a great time to chime in, Eli.
Okay, I've lost my video feed, so I'm going on my scant audio device. I got a note back from Sandra, thank you, about the relationship to historic review, which was mentioned in our discussions in the city council and the report. And I think, if I'm getting this right, Brandon Spencer Hartle was working on a project on that during 17-18, which is overlapping almost 100% with the time frame for this project. So I guess I wanted to confirm that that project is also looking at scope of review, as design review commission is, and whether we might be able to get him invited onto our agenda to hear about the scoping of that project, while it's not too late to share any thoughts we have on it.
Yeah, Brandon responded to me and said that he is finishing up his scope of work, and he'll be back here in the summer. Well, he'll be here in the summer to share a similar scope of work. Some, like the Landmarks Commission, for example, is interested in seeing how that aligns with this. So you might see a version of our timeline with Brandon's timeline superimposed, because for those of you who don't know, design review and historic resource review, they have the same origins. That's why our design review also talks about conservation. And so their tools are intricately connected, and both of these tools that Laura's pointing at are used for both reviews and for both review bodies. So yes, Eli, Brandon will be here with his scope, and he'll be looking at that too.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other comments or questions? You know, throughout our comp plan process and like mixed use zone process, there's a lot of, and you guys know this, there's a lot of importance, there's concern from the community, there's a lot of tension with all that we're trying to do with our centers and corridors, and getting the standards and the guidelines right to help guide us through that tension, yet still hit all of our growth goals is going to be paramount. I mean, big heavy weight on your shoulders, guys. But I'm not doing that. I'm not stating that to make you feel that as much as I think we need to figure out how to make sure the purpose statements helps guide that work, just like you've already said. And so I think kind of something for us all to mull over is, you know, you hit on it, Andre, right? So what does context mean to you? What does context mean to the individual who lives on Division? What does it mean to the individual that lives near Division? And how does their idea of their neighborhood mesh with the vision that we've laid out for the growth of the centers and corridors? And how do we kind of guide that? And it's a great challenge. So I'm looking forward to helping work through that, because I think getting that right is going to be imperative for the entire city. So challenge to all of us. Any other comments or questions? Do you guys have anything else for us?
That was it. I think we just wanted to make sure you knew what was going on and that those touch points make sense with the commission. And like we mentioned, the subcommittee, we are planning on bringing the subcommittee together so we can have those joint meetings and some more manageable number of people with the design commission.
Great. Thank you. Appreciate you bearing with us as we went a little late, and for everybody hanging in there. And Mike and Eli for being on the phone. With that, we're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.